done one of these in a bit, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm a bit rubbish. I've got nothing prepared. I just thought I'd do a little video for some people. I just spoken to me mate Pat Conway, who basically he's in a similar position to what I was about 7 years ago. So he got cancer and they identified the tumour, and he had chemo and radiotherapy to shrink the tumour, and then invasive surgery, and everything's all good. So he's sort of at that stage now where I was 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, yeah. But you know, it didn't end out that way for me, although, like I say, that was 7 or 8 years ago, and if you would have told me then that I'd get, you know, I probably would have liked, you know, and I did like the option of, you know, getting an all clear and living to an ripe old age, 105. Didn't get it, but I sort of did at that time, you know. And he said, it was like, well, seems to be all clear, and we'll see you in 3 to 6 months for scans. Anyway, you know the story. It came back, and I had another operation, and then another to reverse the fucking last one, and it just spread. So I'm in the sort of unenviable position today where I've got cancer in my hip, my spine, my rectum, which is fucking huge actually. Sort of, when these people say it's a pain in the arse, this literally is a pain in the arse. I can't sit down for long periods, and it's just disgusting and debilitating illness. And I think one of the reasons I decided to make a video this morning is I actually want to live another year, but at the moment I feel like it's getting bigger, and I'm in more pain, and you know, I've not really said people don't know me. You know, some people who do, some people who think they know me, but they don't. I think this will enable a few people. No, it'd be nice in a year's time to be met by a stranger who said, "Oh, you the lad who does the videos?" And I'd like that. You know, I'd like to be remembered for that. Yeah, so talking to old mates recently who they're good people, and we have a recovery history, you know. But when people see me in the fellowship, you know, I'm 34 years on Thursday, on the 20th of November. I'm 34 years sober, you know, which is quite an achievement, really. But when people see me in the fellowship, you know, young people, I'm known because my daughter is 7 years sober. So I'm amongst the younger set. I'm known as Sally's dad. That's my, you know, John, Sally's dad. amongst the older generation, Sally's known as Sally John's daughter, you know. But I'm standalone. My name is John Hopkins, and I'm known within the fellowship because I'm a long time round, and I've done a lot of work with alcoholics, and that's my thing. That's my mission. That's my purpose, I think. So, yeah. But one of the I call these old, they become old friends, you know. But most of the time, when we were getting sober, we were too busy for all that friend stuff, you know. Like we went to meetings to stay sober, to carry a message, to, you know, all this. I don't think Costa's existed when I got sober. McDonald's, we used to have the odd coffee in McDonald's, but it seems to be very, you know, coffee club culture nowadays. But there was a lot of people who came round at a similar time, and I think quite often you find that these people get sober in groups and they support each other, and they fall out with each other, and they hate each other, and then they don't hate each other, and then they become friends again later on in sobriety. And they think, well, why did they fall out with him or her? What was that about? I don't know. So, yeah, been sort of spending a bit of time, not loads, but reconnecting with these old friends, old acquaintances who we share a recovery history with. And a lot of them, you know, we don't like to compare, but I appear compelled to do it. So, you know, I do compare myself with other people, and, you know, most of the people who are my time round, my time sober, they've done quite a lot with their lives, you know, and a lot of them are really successful in business and stuff like that. And this one lad, Dennis in particular, shout out to Dennis, good lad, was very successful in business, you know, and he took me for something to eat and blah blah blah, and he seemed genuinely bothered, you know, about sort of me dying, and I think it's like he was genuinely bothered about Michael Jackson dying. You know, and he said, you know, it ruined him when Michael Jackson, because that was part of his growing up, that was part of his adolescence and all that. But so I was part of his getting sober, and you know, so he may not even like me, but I'm a part of his recovery history. But he said, do you need anything, or do you want anything? You know, and he offered me sort of holidays and blah blah blah. You know, I could go to, he's got a house in Spain, beautiful, can go there if you want, anytime. And I said, no thanks, I just can't travel. I'm just scared of getting an infection, and just, I mean, that'd be it. If I got flu, I've got no immune system, I'm just dead. That's it. Everything it'll go straight, usually kidneys first, and then everything else collapses. So no, I'm gonna try and drag this out as long as I can. So I said, thank you for that, it's a nice offer. And it was genuine, heartfelt. And he said, is there anything else? Is there anything you want? You know. Anyway, he's got a little cabin in Morecambe. So I had a weekend in there. It was really nice. Really nice, and I do appreciate that. But pretty much anything else. I thought, you know, because it's very rare that you get people who say, do you want anything? And they're in a position to give it you. You know, very few times that multi-millionaires say, do you want anything? And they mean it, and it's sincere. And over the last 2 years, I've had that quite a bit. And I've you know, I have sort of received sort of favours and stuff from rich friends who've sort of paid for holidays and stuff like that. Great, you know, but can't fly, so, but it's still a dear do, and they've helped me out a lot. But when when rich people say, what do you want? And you can't think of anything, you know, there's absolutely nothing that I want or need, you know. There's not absolutely anything that I want, because obviously I'm making these videos, and I would like to make a autobiography. I wrote a book called The Boy with a Thick Skin Coat, so I'd like to make a film sort of like that, but it'd just be an autobiography of my life. And you know, because most of my life's been in sobriety. Most of my life's, no, a lot of people have got torrid tales to tell of the drinking and the drugging and the jails and the, you know, punching and the gouging and the mud and the blood and the beer, you know. But I've got that as well. But I've also got 34 years sobriety now, which is, you know, there's very few of us around. I'd like to make 35. Can you imagine that? If I made 35, and if I did 2 or 3 videos a week, that'd be 300 or so days. So it'd be nearly a year. So this might be my, what I would like a bit of proper gear though, you know, to make it. So an old cinema camera, like 4K Canon C300 Mark II, that's what I fancy. Get them for about 1,500 quid now, second hand. They're about 15,000 quid new. A lens, cine lens, and that's about it, I think. Maybe another light, but yeah, I like to document my life, make a documentary, not a documentary. I like to make it a drama. Obviously I'll have someone like, who shall I have playing me? Max Beasley. He can play me. He's an H can play a young me, a young Johnny Hopkins. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that. There's my wish list. I might put a GoFundMe thing on, you know, to make this film. So I'll link that in eventually. All right, mate. Or mate, I say. I have to do these as if I'm talking to a mate, so, which maybe you are. So thanks for watching, and I'll put one up pretty soon, within 3 days, I say. Ta-da.